My name is Dith Pran. I survived the killing fields of Cambodia, where the Khmer Rouge murdered 2 million of my people, 1 in 4 Cambodians. I was not a soldier or a politician. I was a journalist, a translator, a man who believed in truth. For 4 years, I lived in hell on earth, watching my country die while pretending to be someone else. This is how I survived when survival seemed impossible, and why I dedicated my life to making sure the world would never forget. I was born in 1942 in Siem Reap, near the ancient temples of Angkor Wat. Cambodia then was beautiful, peaceful. We called it the Switzerland of Southeast Asia. I learned English, French, became educated. My country was neutral in the growing war around us. I believed in progress, in journalism, in telling stories that mattered. In 1972, I met Sidney Schanberg, American correspondent for the New York Times. I became his translator, his guide to Cambodia. Together we covered the growing war, as Vietnamese communists and Americans fought on our soil. Sidney trusted me with his life, and I trusted him with truth. We were partners in seeking facts in a world of lies. The war grew worse each day. American B-52s dropped more bombs on Cambodia than all of World War II. The Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot, gained strength in the chaos. I documented it all, the destruction, the refugees, the growing madness. Khmer yearning ban Cholpria. We Cambodians have always endured, but this was different. By April 1975, Phnom Penh was surrounded. Rockets fell daily. Refugees filled every street. I helped Sidney report the final days of our government. We knew the Khmer Rouge were coming, but we thought they would bring peace. How wrong we were. Sometimes ignorance is the only blessing God gives us. April 17, 1975, the day that destroyed my world. Young soldiers in black uniforms marched into Phnom Penh. They were children, some only 12 years old, carrying AK-47s, bigger than themselves. They said they were liberating us. Instead, they began to kill us. Within hours, they ordered everyone out of the city. 2 million people forced to walk. Old people, sick people, newborn babies. They said it was temporary, just for 3 days. It was a lie. Those who couldn't walk were shot. I helped Sidney reach the French embassy, thinking I would join him there. At the French embassy, hundreds of foreigners and Cambodians sought sanctuary. The Khmer Rouge demanded all Cambodians be handed over. Sidney begged them to let me stay. I was a journalist. I worked with Americans. But they refused. Sote bon, goodbye brother, Sidney said. We both knew we might never meet again. I could have fought to stay, could have caused a scene, but that would endanger everyone inside. So I walked out of those gates voluntarily, into the hands of child soldiers who saw me as an enemy. It was the hardest walk of my life, from safety into hell. From Dith Pran the journalist, into someone who must disappear to survive. I became Dith Pran, the peasant farmer from Siem Reap. I hid my education, my English, my connection to Americans. The Khmer Rouge killed anyone who wore glasses, who had soft hands, who knew foreign languages. I learned to think like them, speak like them, survive like them. Chul Chnam Brambe. I lived for 5 terrible years. They moved us from camp to camp like cattle. We worked 18 hours a day in rice fields, eating 1 bowl of thin soup. Children informed on their parents, wives on husbands. I watched my friends die of starvation, exhaustion, execution. But I kept silent, kept working, kept pretending to be someone else. They called them killing fields, places where they murdered thousands. I saw them fill with bodies of teachers, doctors, anyone who represented the old Cambodia. Sometimes I helped bury the dead, never knowing if tomorrow I would join them. Every sunrise was a gift I didn't deserve. Every day I nearly broke my cover. When they demanded I write in Khmer, and I wrote too well. When someone asked about America, and I almost answered in English. When I found pages from my notebook and had to burn them before anyone saw. Fear became my constant companion. Fear and the memory of Sidney's face. January 1979. Vietnamese forces drove out the Khmer Rouge. After 4 years of hell, I was free. But free to do what? Cambodia was destroyed, my family scattered, my friends dead. I was alive in a land of ghosts. Liberation felt like awakening from a nightmare into an empty room. I made my way to refugee camps on the Thai border. There I met American officials looking for missing persons. When I told them who I was, Dith Pran, Sidney Schanberg's translator, they didn't believe me. This man in rags couldn't be the journalist they knew. But Sidney had never stopped looking for me. When Sidney flew to the refugee camp and saw me, we both cried like children. 4 years of wondering if the other was alive. 4 years of carrying guilt and hope. He had won a Pulitzer Prize for his Cambodia reporting. but he said it meant nothing without knowing I was safe. Bong Min Chui Te, you are really alive, he said. Sydney sponsored my immigration to America. New York City, so different from the killing fields. Yet sometimes the noise and crowds brought back memories. I had survived, but survival was just the beginning. Now I had to learn how to live again, how to be Dith Pran the man, not just the survivor. Sydney wrote a movie about our story, The Killing Fields. Hang Hor, another Cambodian survivor, played me and won an Academy Award. Watching my story on screen was both healing and painful. The world finally saw what happened to Cambodia. But no movie could capture the full horror, the full loss. I became a photojournalist for the New York Times, covering other conflicts, other suffering. But my real mission was bearing witness to the Cambodian genocide. I testified at trials, spoke at universities, interviewed survivors. Tangasa Ning Min Jeng Fle. We must never forget, never again. In the 1990s, I returned to Cambodia for the first time since my escape. Everywhere I looked, I saw ghosts, my friends, my colleagues, my old life. The killing fields were now tourist sites, but for me they remained graveyards of dreams. I knelt and prayed for all who didn't survive to see this day. When I died in 2008, I had spent 30 years making sure the world remembered Cambodia's tragedy. Not for revenge, but for prevention. Every time I told my story, I honored the 2 million who couldn't tell theirs. Every person who listened carried a piece of Cambodia's truth forward. I was not a hero. I was a survivor who became a witness. I lived when others died, not because I was better or stronger, but because sometimes luck and stubbornness are enough. What I learned in the killing fields is this: evil triumphs when good people stay silent. So I spoke. I spoke for those who couldn't. I remembered for those who are forgotten. The living must remember so the dead can rest. That is my gift to you. Remember and never let this happen again.